Good evening, everyone. We are here with a very, very special announcement, something that a lot of people in publishing, design, and the book world have been waiting for. We are today announcing the shortlist for the 9th edition of Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize. We have with us today, on my left, Dr. Alka Pande. She's the chair of jury for the Book Cover Prize. On my right, we have Dr. Kunal Basu, who's also a jury member, who's been with us for almost 4 years now. Joining us digitally from Morocco, we have Director Apeejay Surendra Group, also a jury member, and the creative force behind Oxford Bookstores, Ms. Priti Paul. And we also have with us Director Information Services, South Asia Goethe Institute, Max Muller Bhavan, Anja Reideberger. She's joining us from New Delhi. Anja is our guest jury for the 9th edition. So for all those of you who do not know about the Book Cover Prize, I'd like to give you a brief overview. The Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize is a first of its kind honor for splendor in book design, an endeavor by the iconic Oxford bookstores to perceive and empower the work of artists, designers, illustrators who work on book covers. The prize acknowledges the significance of the adjust of illustrations and story, especially in our undeniably visual age, and trusts that a book cover translates and interprets the resulting content in critical ways that add to its definitive achievement. Over the last 9 years, we've acknowledged so many book jacket designers. We have with us one of our winners, Pinaki, who was awarded, I think, the 5th edition award for his book, Kolkata. And over all these years, Kolkata was authored by Dr. Basu himself. And over the years, we've acknowledged so many book jackets, and these are really the unsung heroes of the publishing industry who work on these book jackets. So 23 titles came as long-listed book titles this year, and these titles were selected by our jury panel, Dr. Alka Pande, Ms. Priti Paul, Dr. Kunal Basu, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Mr. Emmauel Lebrun-Damiens, who's also our guest jury this year, and Anja Reideberger, who's also a guest jury for this year. So this long list that we announced was pulled out and screened from a total of 350 covers. In fact, more than 350 covers were nominated, but we screened them down to 350, which were then presented to the jury to select their long list. And the short list that we announced today is out of those 23 covers. Before we move ahead with the short list announcement, I'd like to ask our chair of jury, Dr. Alka Pande, to share some insights on the decision making, the process, and how the jury comes down to just a few covers out of hundreds of covers that we receive.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction and the overarching view of the book cover design, Mitra. I'm so glad to have my friend Kunal Basu here, who has been walking the journey with us for the last 9 years. I'm really happy that Anja has joined us because, as I said in our long list, you know, Germany has always played a very, very important role in the history of design across the world, with the first printing press being brought to India by Raja Ravi Varma through a German agency. So we have a very, very special relationship with Germany, and thank you for being here, Anja. And thank you, Priti, for being here too, because I must salute Priti Paul. She's had the vision to make the invisible visible, the graphic designer who plays a very, very important role in any book. Even though people say never judge a book by its cover, 80% of the time, particularly for emerging authors, a book is always judged by its cover. The process of the jury begins actually with Nita. She gives a call and people apply. And every year in the last 9 years, we've been growing bits by bit, pieces by pieces, and we've reached a huge number this year. In fact, Nita had to pare down certain people because there were incomplete applications as well. But we had about 350 book covers to go through. And let me tell you, it's not really easy because we are all seven this year, extremely opinionated people, believe you me. We have strong opinions. We do not move away from saying what we do. And then we give our recommendations to Nita, who collates it together, which is not, again, an easy task. And once the collation is done, we have to try and, can you imagine, from 350 covers to bring it down to 23 was really a Herculean task. And all the jury members worked very assiduously for it. We announced the 23 in New Delhi late last month. The good thing is that now that the shortlist is there, for the first time, I think in the last 9 years, we may not be quibbling over the winner, because every time we come from the long list to the short list to the final winner, we do have a lot of debate and discussion, because as I said, we're all very strong people, we have strong opinions, most of us are writers, we've all worked with designers, so we bring in our own kind of ideology into the selection process. But this year, I think the winner is emerging quite strongly, and we should not be having too much quibbling over that. So that is the way we do the process, which is long, arduous, but very, very transparent. And I think anybody who wins the book cover award really has to be saluted, to be congratulated and celebrated, because it's not easy, but it is, I think, over the years also become the most prestigious award as well.
Thank you, Dr. Pande. So Anja, I'll come to you. You've joined us this year. I'm sure it was overwhelming to receive the big, huge catalog for the book cover prize. Coming from a German background, what unique perspectives or design trends did you notice in the covers that you received from us this year? I mean, you received from different categories ranging from mythology, sci-fi. So please tell us, what was your perception when you received this huge catalog for the book cover prize?
Thank you very much, Nita. I think my first reaction was that I was impressed by the extremely, I would say, diverse and also very compelling selection of titles. It was by no means easy to decide, which ones would be selected for the next round. And now I really think that the shortlist represents a very remarkable area of creativity, which was quite clear from the beginning. And all of them, they really show very unique, I would say, artistic vision. I was also impressed by the captivating range of style and themes, from very haunting, vibrant illustrations to covers that showed a very minimalist elegance, and others that had very bold statements also in their design. And all of them, they showed a very, I would say, strong gateway to the narratives of the books that they would cover. So I think, coming from Germany, that has a strong tradition in book design, not only covers, but also, overall book design. I was especially looking at the craftsmanship and at the attention to detail that the designers would bring to the covers. And I could just see in so many of those titles, and especially on the shortlist, that there was a strong dedication of the designers to create this very immersive reading experience.
Thank you, Anja. Ms. Paul, as experts in the industry, what advice would you give to aspiring book cover designers to create impactful and attention-grabbing covers?
So I'm in the business of selling books, and I And even though I sell books, I also actually buy books every day. I buy arts books, I buy fiction, I buy children's books, and I search online, I visit stores, and I really just love looking for books to read and to browse and for my children. And what I wanted to say is that, you know, in the collaboration, for example, of Kolkata, the book where Pinaki worked with Dr. Basu, you know, and I was there at that event, I could see this really strong collaboration between the writer and the artist. And I could see that there was, you know, like a really strong fit and dialogue. And as a result of it, you know, the book cover that came out was absolutely fantastic and actually ended up winning the prize. So, you know, but Dr. Basu is, you know, a really well-known writer, and, you know, he's established. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of pressure on Pinaki to produce something that's going to do justice to the book, you know, and hold its weight. So you have that kind of situation where, you know, the writer has to, and we have a lot of books in that category. You know, we have a lot of entries where the writers are really famous. You know, we have from Amitabh Ghosh to Namita Gokhale, you know, lots of entries like that. And you want to make sure that the book cover holds its own, you know, in terms of the writing, because, you know, but on the other hand, you have a lot of aspiring writers, you know, and aspiring book cover designers who want to sort of make it in the field. And that's a whole nother story. And I think, you know, from a bookseller's point of view, if you're an aspiring writer and you want to actually end up being on the bookshelves and selling a lot of books, the book cover design does matter, because we see as booksellers that more than 50% of the books that fly off the shelves, for example, in our Delhi store, is by people just browsing the book covers and then something being captivating or compelling or, you know, on its own being able to tell a story. And that's enough of gravity and litmus to make the buyer just, you know, pick up the book from the bookshelf and put it in their bag and buy it. So, so I think a lot of Indian book designers actually tell a very descriptive story in their design when they're designing book covers. But that description does help in communicating with book lovers who are browsing. And that ultimately leads to the book sales, which is very encouraging for the writer, you know, especially if it's a young, new writer. So I think that's where we are in terms of, you know, the impact that a book cover has in India on book browsers and book lovers. It's also what I feel is a difference between, you know, trying to design something for an established writer vis-a-vis a new writer. And I think that, you know, I'm very happy to hear about the German experience, because and that book covers mean so much in Germany. And I think, you know, one of the directions that we should look at is, you know, how is the, you know, the attention to detail maybe the next step in our journey as, you know, book cover designers and, you know, people giving awards, is to look at the craftsmanship. That would definitely be a direction that we can evolve further towards. So that's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Dr. Basu, your book won the book cover prize in one of our editions, the 4th edition, I remember. And you've been seeing so many covers now as the jury member for the book cover prize. So tell us what trends or what innovation in design now interests you when you see, I mean, when you see 350 covers, what catches your attention?
Thank you. I will tell you this up front, that our job is becoming harder year to year. I don't know exactly who to blame. Should I blame Alka? Should I blame Nita? Because when I first came on board, it was a difficult job in itself, because there's so many interesting book covers to choose from. Now, not only have the numbers increased, but the diversity of work has also increased. So I'd like to make 2 comments, if I may. You know, in the early years, book cover design, in the early years of my participation in this award, the book cover designs were predictable in some respect. They were, in some cases, quite ornamental, and therefore, after a while, your eyes glazed over. Okay? What's happened over the number of years is that we have really remarkable artwork on the covers. So I'm really not very happy calling this a cover design prize. I would like to call it a cover art prize. Okay? Because you see, you know, a variety of work. I mean, it's not only descriptive of what's in the book, but also metaphorical. Some are outright surreal. Okay? There are leaps of experiments. And this really warms my heart as somebody who loves art and obviously loves books, to see such diversity coming out from our designers, whether they be experienced designers or new designers. That's really one very positive trend that I see in the cover prize. The second thing that I see, which is also hugely encouraging for me, is that in the early years, the submissions were from English language publishers, almost exclusively. Almost exclusively. But now, you have the diversity of Indian language press as well. Okay? I mean, we are in Kolkata, so there have been submissions by Bengali publishers, the submissions from Malayalam publishers, submissions from Marathi publishers, which actually reflects the diversity of publishing and book art in this country. And I think the prize will be even more, will be richer as this diversity increases and spreads in different ways. The final word that I would like to say is this, that sometimes authors don't pay enough attention to the covers of their books. Okay? So the books are edited, the editor sends it out to a designer with a one-page brief, and the book cover comes back, and the author says, fine, this is good, it's okay. The author is excited seeing the book in print with a cover and doesn't pay as much attention to the cover. I'm of the opposite, in the opposite camp. I'm fiendish about my covers. Okay? For me, part of the pleasure of doing a book is also to participate in the cover design process with an artist. Okay? I wish that, and my final thoughts are, that I wish this, as we go forward, not only would designers or artists create fabulous covers for book jackets, but also that authors play a more active role, a more engaged role, because that conversation between the author and the book cover artist is going to enhance the process and make it even better. And I would really want to thank the Oxford Book Cover Prize and and Priti and everybody else who have been there from the inception of the prize for bringing this wonderful experience to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Basu. Anja, in your experience, we'd like to know more about how the German publishing industry and the cover industry in Germany works, but also what covers that you saw in the list here and how different they were from what you see back home in your country, and any other particular design elements or approaches that you find here in the covers from India different from Germany?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I mean, of course, you know, dealing with different languages and having to put different kind of fonts into a cover is a very challenging task. So this was something that I was looking at. You know, how are the designers dealing, you know, with letters that are not Latin letters, for example, right? Different alphabets. I was feeling that many of the books of the list had a strong visual impact. So there were, you know, many covers that had very strong, you know, works of art from photography, for example, or from you know, arts in general, paintings and works of print art on the cover that, you know, set also strong visual input. So this kind of visual impact also impressed me. And I would say you know, that's really hard to compare, but the quality of execution, which was then also, you know, visible, you know, we really had the books in our hands and could also feel the covers, and how not only the design was executed, but also, you know, the quality of the paper, which, I mean, adds to the cover, right? And the brightness of the colors. So this was also very remarkable, and something that really stood out to me in my impression when looking at the titles.
Thank you. A last question for the day before we move to announce the shortlist, and I hand over the mic to Dr. Pande and Dr. Basu. Ms. Paul, as a bookseller, as a bookshop owner, and somebody from the creative space, how do you believe that your work influences your evaluation of the book jackets that you receive?
So, I think that all the people on the jury seem to be like visually, you know, people who are visually excited. Like we like things that are visual and that they speak to us deeply. I mean, and it seems to me that most of us seem to love books and art. I'm glad. Kunal said that, and I think Alka is very much from that background, and it seems Anja as well. So I think for me as a visual person, you know, the book jacket is extremely important. And I can't imagine, like, when you walk into an Indian bookstore, you know, you see a million different colors, you know, all around you, and it's, you know, colorful and it's exciting and it's full of things to look at, very much in keeping with our culture, you know. We like color, and we like texture, and we like sound and noise and this thing. So it speaks very much about who we are as a people. On the other hand, like if you walk into a bookstore in France, all the jackets are cream with a thin red line. So maybe, you know, it speaks to who they are as people. So maybe, you know, the books, you know, have to be a reflection of, you know, who you are as a people. And I think that, you know, walking to an Indian bookstore, you know, it's vibrant, it's colorful, it's engaging, it's exciting, and you pick up this book and you pick up that book because you like the cover, and that's what, you know, what this prize is all about, celebrating the designers, and also celebrating what we are as a culture and a people.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we announce the covers, I'd like to inform you all that this shortlist that we announced today is derived from the 23 covers that made it to the long list. Also, there is a cap on the entries. So when we say that we receive 350 plus covers, there's actually a capping on every publisher imprint. So we do not allow more than 3 nominations per publishing imprint. So that's where we limit per publisher from sending nominations. So we only allow 3 books per imprint. I'd now like to request Dr. Alka Pande. So we have 7 covers that have made it to the shortlist. I'd like to request Dr. Pande to announce the first 3.
So it gives me great pleasure in announcing they're not in order of 1, 2, 3, but in order of the way they have been handed over. So it's not being graded, it's just being, we don't know who really the winner is. The name of the book is the book Beautiful. Name of publisher is Hachette India. It's an imprint, it's in the category of adult and business, an imprint of Hachette India. Name of the designer is Bhavi Mehta, and name of the author is Pradeep Sebastian. The second book is the Penguin Book of Indian Poets. The name of the publisher is Hamish Hamilton, an imprint of Penguin Random House. Name of the designer is Ehlavat Gunjan. It's an edited book by the poet and author Jeet Thayal. The third book is Azad Nagar, name of the publisher. It's a solo nomination, HarperCollins India. Name of the designer is Saurav Das. Name of the author is Laura T. Murphy.
Dr. Basu.
Goes. The first, name of the book, The Adornment of Gods. Name of publisher, Westland Books. Name of the designer is Saurav Garge. And name of the author is Devdutt Patnaik. The next one, name of the book, Not Quite a Disaster After All. Name of the publisher, Harper Fiction. It's an imprint of HarperCollins India. Name of the designer, Amit Malhotra. Name of the author, Buku Sarkar. And the next, the name of the book is When Indian Flowers Bloomed in Europe. Name of the publisher, Tappy Collection, an imprint of Niyogi Books. Name of the designer, Shashi Bhushan Prasad. Name of the author, Ebelske Harkamt Yonis. And finally, name of the book is Mystics and Skeptics. Name of the publisher is Harper Nonfiction, which is an imprint of HarperCollins India. Name of the designer is Bonita Vaz Shimre. And name of the author is Namita Gokhale.
Thank you, Dr. Basu. Over to Dr. Alka Pande for closing remarks on the shortlist this year.
So I think now that we have taken the veil off the bride and you can see all the 7 book covers, you will see a great diversity, not only in the creative process, in the books themselves, and the book covers. The only thing is that this year, we've not had, the vernacular press has not made it to the shortlist, though last year the winner was from Jadavpur University. We had a lot of entries from the vernacular press. I don't know, somehow they seem to have not really made it to the shortlist, but it was really very interesting to see the kind of publishing which is being done in different regions of the country, whether it is in West Bengal, in Maharashtra, in Central India. This was a very heartening thing. And as Kunal said, the cultural diversity and the plurality of the country is so evident in the literature of the country. And the book covers are a testimony to this great creative genius of our country. And I've loved the fact that Kunal has called it book art. And that is how actually it was when it all started way back, whether it was in India with the pothis, with the illuminated manuscripts that we had, whether it was in the West where there was, the Bible, which was inlaid with the most beauteous stones, and you have that in the early Christian Byzantine era, and you see some of the most beautiful books which were, pieces of art, whether they were the illustrated Ramayana, you could hold them in your hand, whether they were the palm leaf manuscripts of the Pragya Paramita, they were all so painstakingly done by, we didn't have these divisions of like silos, book cover, writer, author. So in the days of our ancient past, they were all artists. An artist could paint, an artist could dance, the artist was a poet, the artist was also the creator of his own book. So thank you for bringing that point to the forefront, that it is actually not limited to being an art cover book, but it is a cover art design, and I'm really delighted that it is finally getting its due in the world, because we only think, when we think of art, we only think of fine art. So I'm so glad that we are bringing in the graphic quality too into the mainstream of an art practice. So thank you very much. I thank Anja, I thank Priti for taking time out and joining us on Zoom. Also bringing in technology, that we can all, the presence is there, the absence is not felt, and we are all together here this evening celebrating the shortlisting of the Art Book Cover Prize. Thank you very much, and thank you, Neeta.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Just for everyone's knowledge, we'll be announcing the winner in Delhi in March. So we'll see the jury there. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
in graphic detail. We would now call on stage Pinaki, Debkumar Mitra, and Harsho Chattoraj for a conversation. Pinaki is a celebrated graphic illustrator designer and has crafted nearly 500 book covers and won multiple awards, including the prestigious Oxford Bookstore Book Cover Prize. Twice honored with the Publishing Next Award, he is also an editor for the renowned magazine Longform. Debkumar Mitra is a comics curator, editor, reviewer, and fan who is also a science technological columnist and does workshops on the narrative structures of graphic tales. Based in Kolkata, Harsho Chattoraj is a renowned graphic novelist and illustrator. With a career spanning 2 decades, he has collaborated with publishers and clients worldwide, from India to Switzerland. Recent works include Operation DK, Where Did My Profits Go, and Birth of Bangladesh. We may now start off with the conversation. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, it works for me.
Hello, hello, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see all of you seated over here. So far, we just had the exhibition of the different covers, and like our judges just told us about it, the covers show design, art, a quality of showcasing the story and ideas behind it in a very intense graphical way. Talking about graphics and covers, we are moving right now into the field of comics, graphic novels, the way of telling a story through the medium of pictures and text, which has been started a long time back, but in India is explored in a certain way, in certain fields, in certain ways, by very diverse groups of people. But we are yet to figure out how to make a better use of it. But thanks to over here, Pinaki over here on my side, and my other friend, Debkumar, who have been in the business of helping those who create comics create further, better with their long-form comics initiative,
which is an anthology which they have been publishing for the last, I think the second edition have come out already, and they will be about to start on the third. But today we'll be discussing another comic anthology, the one that was started by them some time back on the writings of the great Manto. Now, before we start off on that, I would like to just check with, let's say I'll start with you, Pinaki. So can you just tell us how long you've been working on this process? Because right now, the creation of a comic anthology is a very taxing process. You have to first figure out which artist to take, which writer and artist to take, combine. Sometimes you combine and sometimes you don't. Which in your endeavor, sometimes you go for artists who can write as well, and vice versa. So how long has the process taken you?
Thank you, Harsho. So basically, yes, when we do anthologies and, after doing long form, Devuda is there. We are part of the long form collective. So initially, we started off with 4 people. Debkumar, Mitra, I myself, and there was also Shekhar Mukherjee and Shorbojit Chen. So these were the 4 people with whom we formed the long form collective. And the first time we did the long form collective, it was really, really difficult. And I'll tell you why. Because we really didn't know what to do, because there were so many people, involved in the process of giving works, and then you have to figure them out, edit them, and then, go to and forth. It was a kind of a taxing process. But after the first long form anthology came out, and then the second one came out, we know now, we are much more sure of what to do and, to take the process forward. Now, we have been extremely fortunate to have Simon and Schuster, who actually sort of consented to do an anthology of stories of Manto. Now, as you all know, Manto is a huge, huge challenge. It's very difficult to do Manto because his stories are visceral. And sometimes you feel that even, a good visual cannot represent his story, enough. So we were very careful in selecting the artists. So we have in all, a lot of artists, and some of them are really, really well known. So there is, of course, Apupen, very, very good comic artist who is doing it. Priyankar Gupta. We have Shekhar Mukherjee doing one story. Debkumar, Mitra, and I myself is doing one story. And then there is, of course, Orgho Manna doing a story. So the artist's name, and Gayatri, for example, one of the best teachers in NIT Ahmedabad, she has consented to do a story. Ishita is doing a story from Jadavpur University. So, initially when we sort of shortlisted the names, okay, it's not as if we had everybody in our minds. It was not an open call. Let me clarify, because with this kind of anthology, we didn't go for an open call. We selected each and every one based on certain samples that they sent to us. And once we liked the samples, we sort of finalized the names. But we gave them complete freedom to, do the stories as they like. So it's not as if, they have transplanted the Manto story exactly the way it was into the graphic format, into the comics format. They have also contemporaneized it. There are a lot of contemporary events that gets reflected in the stories. So it's going to be a very, very exciting anthology. I know it's very unique for somebody to present a work that is still not out as a book. It will be out, I think, only in 4 or 5 months' time. But you will understand the kind of work that has gone behind the, behind the doors, as they say it, in order to make this a really successful anthology. And we want to continue, doing anthologies of great writers and their stories, because we believe that it's a great way of reaching out to a wider audience. And it's also a great way to pay tribute to the authors, whose stories somehow is so, is so much there to be represented in a graphic format. Last but not the least, there is a book in English called the Graphic Canon, where, the classics of literature are actually adapted in order to sort of, be presented in a more contemporary fashion. That was one of the inspiration, but we actually never followed a Western model. We tried to do it our way, but definitely graphic canon was one of the inspiration.
Okay. Debkumar da, could you continue and tell us more about the other creators over there?
Yeah,
associated with it?
I just add a couple of things which it's a quite fascinating journey as far as we are concerned doing this. When we did long form, we were a bit open with our call, who can contribute, who can't. But here in this case, Pinaki said a few things, but one parameter, that one thing, one criteria that has to be there in the person is that person must be very thorough with Manto's works. If you do not know Manto, then you can't do these stories in whatever form. That's what we thought. Now, obviously, Simon Schuster, the editors there, played a role in helping us in this journey. But essentially, as editors, we start playing the role like Kunal Basu was saying when he was announcing as a jury member the covers, the shortlisted covers, that as an author he wants to play an active role in what kind of covers he wants. So as editors, we also did something like that. We actually had an engagement with each of the artists. It's not that we wanted them, we're guiding them to tell the story our way, but instead we are trying to see what they had in their mind, and if we could, in our humble little opinion, if we could add one or two things that we felt, because comics editing in India is still in a very nascent stage. Most of us do not understand how comics get edited as it is being done in the West. But some people feel that text can only be edited, but very few things that you can play around with Manto's text, really, even in translation. Some of the translations are really, really good. Since the work is coming out in English, we had to go by the translation rather than the original text. But I should make this a point that it's, even if it isn't in original, but many of the contributors are familiar with the original content. As far as Pinaki and I are concerned, we are really, really happy that we are starting off this journey with Manto, because both of us are, I mean, while going through the material, once again we feel that there are many like Manto who are still very relevant in the times that we live in. Sometimes we feel that that's a very, now the word has become very, very popular. It's a retro story, it's a retro author, it's a retro thing. But the reason that we allowed people to adapt it in a slightly giving the newer realities that the India faces as a country and our people, is how they become easily a part of the stories which Manto has written about 100 years ago. I mean, that is to us very fascinating. When you see the final thing, it appealed to us. The visual spoke to us in a very, very different way than when I read Manto as a story. The nuances that have been dealt with in a very, very, I mean, fascinating way. As editors, we are in fact, very proud that we are working with this bunch of people who have really, really gone under the skin of every story to find out what's exactly, trying to unravel the mind of Manto. What was he what was he thinking when he wrote this particular line or included this particular event in his very short tales? Thanks.
Thanks. Moving on to another topic from the same discussion. So you were talking about the comics in general, which are, comics abroad, let's say, or the comics which are right now making the waves in India from different publishing houses and comic houses all over. Now, in this one, you took a different approach, slightly different one, right? For example, in comics that we know of, let's say the one DC, Marvel, and the Indian houses are producing in bundles and numbers, you have a separate author, you have a separate scriptwriter, a separate artist, a separate colorist, a separate letterer, a separate penciler, a separate inker. But I think over here you took a call to leave it open to one person, let's say, who's working to do both the art, the copy, the script writing, and the lettering. So that was a very interesting way. So can you tell us a little bit about it? I'll ask you a separate question after this one.
So, Harsho, you are right. In the West, especially in case of Marvel and DC, every job is separated. So you have an inker, somebody writing a story, somebody just drawing it, right? But if you want to do Manto, you cannot do it in that kind of fashion. I don't think, I'm not dishing that out, but sometimes you need an individual creator to do the whole thing and piece it together. Now, what we can allow is sometimes maybe a scriptwriter and maybe an illustrator, okay? Maybe two people can work together, but for this anthology, we had everybody writing the script themselves, so we didn't go through that process. But if it was there, we could have, taken a call and done that. But if you want to look at the kind of industrialized comic, production, we are not into that kind of comics making. In fact, frankly, I must say that, although I admire Marvel, DC and everything, we need to somehow figure it out ourselves here in India, how to go about, developing the comics industry, even industry, because I personally feel we ape DC or Marvel too much. So, since they have an inker and everything separated, we also want to have that kind of industry kind of. But remember, one thing is very different here, and that's, of course, the money in comics. So, DC and Marvel, the way they kind of, they can afford that because, those things are extremely commercialized in a way. Now it's almost Hollywood. Comic-Con in San Diego has now turned out to be a kind of a Hollywood sideshow. But originally it was actually the little creator, the independent comics publishers, the independent comic artists who used to go there, have a conversation, one-to-one conversation with the people, and then used to create things. Even within the industry, remember, the person whom you still admired is, Jack Kirby. Now, Kirby worked within the industry, yet he sort of, subverted a lot of things within the industry, and he is today regarded as a legend. Now, so what we are trying to do here is we are not trying to play a catch-up game at all. We don't need to play a catch-up game, and there is no need for that. What we can do is to figure it ourselves, tell our small stories. So stories can happen anywhere. Stories can happen as you walk down the park street. Even that is worth telling. Stories can happen in the nook and corner of your colony, in your house. Even your small refrigerator may have a story to tell. So we are looking at micro stories, stories that talk about, your own, understanding of the world, and kind of an intimate storytelling process that we are looking at. So it's not as if we are against Marvel or we are against DC. So if something comes up and it's interesting to me, I will read it. And I completely admire the way they go about it. But they're a completely different parameter. So, especially for Manto.
One thing, Pinaki, it's not just Marvel and DC I'm talking about. If you're looking at the comic houses in India.
Yeah, they are also doing it.
Look, for example, all of them, like say Campfire, Amma Chitrakatha.
If
you look at the one Top Cow and Holy Cow.
Holy Cow,
and the others like that. So all of them, they are basically dividing it into different roles.
I know that. But they are also, in a way, you can understand that they are trying to build up that industrialized kind of production that, DC and Marvel, brought up there.
To give a certain way way of, that way what's happening right now, at least in Indian comics. One good thing is letterers, there is a separate category for letterers.
I
which
know,
we
I
didn't
know,
have
I
earlier.
know.
But here what you're doing is a very good endeavor. You're giving
No,
one
so
person chance.
we are looking at, so basically when we are looking at comic artists, right? So when you have a letterer and you have another person who is an inker, a colorist and everything, sometimes the vision, I personally feel needs to be integrated. You cannot have that. You can have numerous and hundred of kind of discussions with each other, but if you can do it together, it can be an integrated work. Now, when you are doing something like Manto, everybody comes up with his own or her own understanding of Manto. Now, if you have an inker and letterer thinking in a certain way, and a colorist thinking in another way, first of all, let me clarify, this entire anthology is black and white. And that's a conscious choice, because I don't think Manto would have been wonderful in color. If somebody does it, we'll be very, very sort of, very happy. But for us, the vision was shades of gray, that's the vision that we have. And it's a very kind of visceral vision. And that visceral vision, is something that we thought that an imagination of a singular person may be better off with, rather than dividing it. But anyway, in long form also, we try to sort of promote the imaginative world of a singular artist. Even if there is a problem with the scripts, we try to help them with the scripts. But let them express themselves. It's not as if we fine-tune everything. It's not about airbrushing everything. Let there be imperfections. Let there be odd edges jutting out here and there. But remember, it's your art after all. Because we don't compromise with the vision that your own art can produce. The imperfections all included. And that's very much part of what we are trying to do.
Debkumar da, moving to you, one question that I would ask is the selection of stories for the anthology. So was it up to you and Pinaki da to select and shortlist the stories, or did you leave it in the hands of the writers and the creators? Who took care of that process?
Okay, it's not a single body who took it. It's a kind of consultation. We wanted to hear what kind of vision they had for those stories, which is 2, 3, 4 stories, and only our editorial input was, I think this may work.
So you asked them to select stories first, which they preferred, and from that you took a call and they took a call, and finally you came to it.
Yeah.
And so can you just give us an idea of 2 or 3 stories which were selected, which you were completely in tune with?
Obviously the most famous stories are there, all there, like Toba Tek Singh, or say
Kali Salwar is there. Yeah.
Kali Salwar. Kholdo is there.
Yeah.
And
Boo is also there, right?
Yes,
Boo.
Boo. So the thing is, just to add to that, see, we to what Pinaki was just saying, in long form also, and that's our belief. People can beg to differ, because there is hardly any industry in India. I don't consider any just having a sprinkling, a few comics only publishers, publishing houses doesn't make an industry. If you look at the numbers that they sell, that is also abysmal. Comics artists are not paid at all. If they are paid, they're paid very little, and only a handful get paid. That's the story of comics in India. Now, to promote in that culture, if you want to really create an industry, you have to go by the Franco-Belgian model that we follow, which initially started, and in a very large part it still is, are creator-owned stories, which is the creator creates everything and the publisher publishes. That is how some great comics publishing houses were born. Fantagraphics, for example, is one. Drawn and Quarterly. And there are numerous boutique comics publishing houses across the world where they only survive by following this model. So initially when we were having our discussions during long form, we decided not to not to go the Marvel DC way. I think in a very advanced, stage, when Marvel DC started, initially it was all the stories were published on broadsheets newspapers in America. Now after that stage, when the consolidation had happened, when they started producing books, the DC Marvel model slowly took over. The issue is here that whether we start we are not at any level. So it's better that let the stories first happen. Every single person has a story. I can share a little thing. I'm just back from Ahmedabad after teaching a short course on comics, graphic narrative at NID. So we had this workshop and we decided to take up a challenge of creating an anthology in 5 days. So we have got 18 people who created short stories around a particular place. And at the end of the day, they gave me a book which is as a mock book, as you say. But the stories are great. They're great stories to read. And they're so simple at heart, and that they have so much, that's so expressive themselves. You may say art can be improved. You may say the script could have been better. You may say the lines should have been much strong, positive. You may say some uses color. The colors could have improved. Yes, of course. But the rawness of the story makes you these kind of telling very endearing. When we did our first anthology, we wanted to know whether it was possible. This is the experiment we did, that whether it's possible, if you leave it to the creator, can we get similar stories which will attract a lot of eyeballs, people will start talking. We are happy to say after 7 years that we may have found a way of getting comics read in every corner of India at least.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's possible to show some of the visuals. So can you show some of the visuals we have, maybe? So this is a story, Kholdo. This is by Alanda Vishnu. He's from NID. It's only a kind of a draft, but you can see what he has done. We haven't shown you the final one because it's only a page that we are showing. Next up is, can we show the next one? So this is Chirantan Shamanto. Yes, we have just discovered him. And it's a very fantastic one. So here also, it's a long story done in black and white. The next one, now this is Shadowgraphy by Gayatri. So we have also used unconventional methods, in telling stories. It's very experimental in a way. It's not conventionally told. And there is another one which is basically a draft. Next one, and that's Shekhar Mukherjee. It's just a draft. So we have just shown you the draft. That's 4 pages. We are actually keeping it kind of close to our chests because when the final thing comes out, it will be so different and so lovely. But we personally feel, the question that you asked regarding the stories. So the only thing, Devuda is right about the stories. We give them the choices and they choose the story. But there are certain stories which we actually prove to be really, really difficult to do. So for example, Thanda Ghost. Okay, it was really, really difficult for people to do that, So someone chose the story and he came back to us and said that, I'm not able to do that. And it's not coming from a newcomer. It came out from one of the most important comic artists in India. He said that, no, I'm not able to do it because I cannot just figure it out. It's so difficult to do. So we give him another story. We cannot let him go. I'm just withholding his name again because he's really, really well known. Now the whole thing is, this is the magic of Manto. It's so difficult to do him, in this format. And it's a real challenge. So I personally feel we can go either way. We can be super successful in doing it and maybe catch a fraction of what he has said, or we may be completely a washout. So I'm really fearful about what is going to come out. But one thing, I'm absolutely sure about, we are not going to stop experimenting with the form when the anthology comes out. It will not be an airbrushed collection. That much I can guarantee you.
The fact that you've taken the idea of creating a graphic novel or an anthology in black and white, in grey tone, that itself speaks a lot. Because normally when we see comic anthologies or graphic novels, we see the flow of color everywhere, where you're doing something in grey tone, which I personally like a lot, more than color, exactly. So it's something refreshing to hear that thought. Moving now to a different point, which I'm asking you, and I'll then move to you with that. So this is one option right now, which you're working on right now. What are your thoughts on further anthologies? What's the next plan that you have in mind?
So long form 3 is almost done. So long form 3 will be coming up. That's coming up, or similar like this. So maybe we should do and take some of our Bengali masters. Jadavpur University. Yeah, Satyajit Ray, of course, is a possibility, and he actually wants to do it. I know that. You started the whole process. Now, Tagore anthology is coming out from Jadavpur University. So you will get to see a Tagore anthology, and it's a very, very good one. I have one of the stories there, but a lot of people, brilliant artists have stories, and we have done Tagore completely differently. Okay. Now, next up, maybe another author whom we like. Maybe take Chuktai, right? Maybe take Vibhuti Bhushan, maybe, So we want to take this further, and create this graphic canon of essential Indian authors that we need to read. So there is no possibility, but it also depends on the publisher and the success of Manto. We have chosen Manto intentionally for the first. We never wanted to play safe. We could have chosen, another author. Would have been easier for us to do. But we chose Manto. We were going for, the jugular. The first one, which is more tougher. If we can ace that, we can ace the others.
And since we are in Bengal right now, like you mentioned, the other possibilities are endless, for example, for Bengali authors. But like Manto, are there any other authors who have written not in Bengali, but in Hindi or other languages that you would like to take on in the form of an anthology?
Of course. The one that I have in my mind is Bashir. Pinaki and I had some discussion. I know that parts of Bashir is untranslatable. So
very difficult to do that colloquialism.
Yeah, so we started some dialogue with some people from Kerala, artists from Kerala, and they seem to be very interested. Yeah. And parts of it has been translated, and so other artists can chip in. So if we can create a dialogue between these people and we're not exactly saying that we are pinning a lot of hope on Manto. I think, in the gut we feel that maybe we have done something. Like, for example, who ever thinks of using Ravan Chaya in the form of comics? After all, we are actually using an age-old storytelling medium, which is visual, and adapting into mainstream comics storytelling. So let us see. It's comics have never been for the purest. In the West, it took some time to become a part of the regular literature thing. Now they also teach comics as part of literature courses, and I'm sure that our little efforts and others, of course, they're doing a great job. Everywhere I see newer artists, I encounter newer people who are doing, great works of comics, but the thing that we feel very strongly is that we will do something in Bengali very soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Debkumar da. Thank you, Pinaki da, for your time. And thanks to all of you in the audience for being here with us when we're talking about comics and, comic anthologies. Any of you have any questions before we wrap up? The time is limited. Any questions from any of you? One over there.
Hi, this is Aditya. I have experimented a little bit. I'm in the digital publishing space, mostly dealing with audio, video, and text right now. So I've experimented a little bit in the comic space, just for getting used to it. Now, I grew up reading comics. What were they? Archie's, Phantom, War Comics, and all kind of things, right? And these are all exclusive comic series, and they were abundantly available everywhere. So the market is definitely there. What you guys are doing are basically adaptation of stories. So there's this difficulty of converting these stories into the comic format, long form comic format. But if you look at the super hit comic, the ones I spoke of, Asterix, Tintin, War Comics, they are all exclusive comics format. So they have a definitive advantage over other formats because they are not available in a written format, they are not available in a filmic format, they are not available in a drama. From the comics, films have come out now. So do you think going exclusive on a new comic genre than adaptation work can be a game changer?
Yeah, so no, basically we don't always do this. So this is one off. So for the Manto anthology, it's already there. But for long form, it's all new. It's all new comics and everything. So it's not as if, we do, adaptations regularly. But for this particular anthology, it's an adaptation. But normally long forms are like standalone new stories. There are nothing, before that, So it's basically the creation of the person, impromptu creation, and it's just a story like that. You have an answer? No, I think so only for this anthology this happens.
So, no more questions. So thank you all for your time and being with us. Thank you, Pinaki da. Thank you so much, Madam. Thank you.
For staying with us here this evening. Tomorrow is the last day of the 15th edition of the Apeejay Kolkata Literary Festival. Please do join in for the celebration. Finally, before we end today's session and the evening, I would like to thank our partners, refreshment partner Chabar, gifting partner Taifu Tea, healthcare partner AMRI Hospitals, radio partner 93.5 Red FM, event partner Navkreet, hospitality partner Kenilworth Hotel, institutional partners APJ School and iLead, festival partners Australian Consulate General